So when I was editing the previous video, I noticed a couple of things. And the first thing I noticed was in this JavaScript file here, index.js. I noticed that this line was a little cut off by the side of the window. So if you were wondering what goes there, there it is. And let's go ahead and I'm going to adjust the position of this pane so it's not cut off quite so much. And then the other thing that I noticed is that on the web server, I don't want to just return an array here. I actually want to return an object, and then this array here is going to be data that's sent along, and I want to include a type. So let me go ahead and turn this into a JavaScript object, and then add, this is in a data property, or let's call it search results. So there's a search results property. And then we're also going to have a type property. Actually, let's do search results here and data here. It could really be anything I want it to be as long as I'm consistent. Okay, so let me go ahead and just reload, restart the server and reload. And then now I have a search results object with type search results. And then the data is the array of posts. Good. So now we're ready to do the database portion. And the backend web server, when I get here, I want to check the type of the message. And if it's a, what did I send? If it's a type search, then I want to grab these keywords and I want to use them to find all the matching posts in the database using a query that looks like this. So let's go ahead and on the server side, when I get my data, I'm going to go ahead and set the, let's see, message is json.parse data, and then if message.type is equal to search, then I want to go ahead and fetch the data. So I'm going to have a function that takes a callback, and it's going to be a data function that looks up the posts. So let's call it something like results is equal to fetch posts, and then I'm going to pass in message dot, what did I call that? Key. And then it's going to take a callback, and I'm going to follow the convention, which is common for node callbacks and asynchronous processing. The first parameter is going to be an error, and the second parameter is going to be the data. And then if error, then console.log error. Else, I'm going to send the results back. So this code right here. So data is just going to be this bit here. There. So there's my callback. And then fetch posts. And if I was making this example a little bit more realistic, and I wanted to support having multiple queries that were occurring in a session, then as an efficiency thing, what I would do is I would set up a database class where the database object has a connection property. And so I make the connection once, or make a pool of connections once when I construct the object, and then I can reuse that connection for multiple queries. And making a connection to the database is pretty expensive, so you want to do that as seldom as possible, like once per session. But for this, since I'm only really supporting the round trip to demonstrate callback hell, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to have a fetch posts. So fetch posts key and callback. And then what do I want to do? So in order, basically what I want to do is I want to open a connection to the database. Actually, let's do this. So I want to open a connection to the database, and then send a query, get the results, and return the record set. So I'm going to need a variable to hold the mssql package. And then I'm going to connect the SQL to the database. So SQL.connect. And this is going to take two parameters. It's going to take a set of configuration parameters, and it's going to take a callback. And the callback is only going to return either an error or nothing. So what do I need for the configuration options? I need the server, which is cisdbss.pcc.edu, and that's the same server we use for CIS 275. The database that I've set up for your use in this project is called web chat, and the username is, actually that's just user, is web chat. Password is web chat. And then options. Okay, so there was a change. I'm going to leave this out for a second and you'll see why I need to add it. So those are the minimum options to connect. And then when I get the callback, I'm going to say, for now, let's console.log error. And then call callback on a record set. And that's actually where I wanted the array from before, but type post name Bob and post with KDE, and I'm just going to do two of them this time. Okay, and then the logic would be if air, then I'm going to do this bit here. Otherwise, I have more stuff here, but ultimately it will do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and restart the server and reload. So we got an error, it looks like. And I get this warning message: tedious deprecated default value for config.options.enable arith abort will change from false to true in the next major version of tedious. Set the value to true or false explicitly to silence this message. So what I need to do here is add an options config. And then it's going to have an enable arith abort property. And I'm going to set that to true. And then if I run it again, I should not get that warning, but I'll probably still get the error. So let's go ahead and reload. Right, and so no warning, but I got a login failed for user web chat, and I noticed that that's lowercase, so I probably just miscapitalized it here. And then let's try it again. So that's what it looks like if you get an error. And then here's what it looks like if it's successful. So I got the connection, and then I called the callback with this value, and then the callback that I passed in just did console.log. Oh, because I passed that in as error. So what I really wanted to do was call back null for the error, and then that for the data. Okay, so good. Now it logged just that. It sent the results back, and I got my search results and my data. So that's what I wanted to happen. So now let's continue going into the database. So this part's going to be the same, but then this part, I'm going to go ahead and make a query or send a query. So I believe the second parameter here is actually supposed to be a pool. So let me go ahead and do console.log pool here and make sure that I'm actually getting a value passed in. So stop and start and reload. Yeah, that looks like a pool. Here, let me scroll up. Right. So first thing I get is an error, and the second thing I get is a connection pool object. So now I can use this connection pool to create a query. So let's go ahead, and here it's going to be pool.input, actually pool.request .input, and then I'm going to create an input parameter for the keyword, and then the type of that is going to be SQL.nvarchar max, and then the value I'm going to bind in is going to be my keyword parameter, which is actually, did I pass that in as key? Yeah, key right there. And then I'm going to execute the query. And that's going to be select star from posts where post like, and actually what I want here is I want to add wildcards to either side of the key. So that's going to be a percent plus key plus percent. Or I can also use a template here, so let's do that. Backtick, percent, $, key, $, percent. Okay, so we're posts like, and then I use @key for the parameter. So what's going to happen is basically this value here gets substituted for this parameter here in the query, which is executed. And then I should have a callback function. So I'm assuming I'm going to get either an error or results. And let's go ahead and console.log error and results and fix the indentation. So let's go ahead and see if this is working. Unexpected token dot because I didn't want to have the semicolon there. And reload. Okay. So what did I get? Looks like I got invalid object name posts. Should be capital P. Let's actually look, yeah, from capital P posts where post like that. Okay, so let's try it again. Okay, so we have results from the database, and there's the actual array of results is in this record set property of the thing I got back. And then we got null for our error. So it's the same pattern as before in this callback. So the callback's basically if error console.log error, and in both of these cases probably we want to go ahead and call the callback with error. Should be in there. And I'm going to handle that error in the callback, so I don't need to do it there. Else I'm going to call my callback null and then my results dot record set. So that's going to give me the array. And I'm missing a closing curly bracket here. There. Okay, so that matches that. And then that's extra. That matches the else. That matches this callback. That closes off this call, the SQL connect. And then that should all be right. Okay, so should be it. Let's go ahead and try it. So kill that, rerun it, reload. And I got search results coming back, an array of 32 things. And so this is the actual contents of the database here. And where's my scroll bar? Don't seem to have a scroll bar here, which is a little awkward, but let's make this a little bigger. Yeah, so KDE, yeah, KDE, 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 KDE. So it looks like it's working. Nothing on here, but KDE, KDE. So it looks like it's finding the right results. And then just to put a bow on this before I move on to promises, let's go ahead and format the results and toss them into this results box. So that's going to be on the client side. And I send the search, and what I want to do is when I get a message, I want to check the type of the message that I'm getting, and if it's search results, I'm going to update that box. So that's going to be event.data. So let message equal that. And if message.search results, I'm sorry, message.type is equal to search results. Double check. Yeah, so type is search results. Then I want to look in the data parameter for my array. So I'm going to make a blob of HTML. And let's actually put this whole thing in an unordered list to keep life easy. And then message.data for each result is going to HTML plus equal. Once again, I'm going to keep this as simple as possible, so I'm just going to use r.name. Actually, let's do r.name :space r.post. And that's going to be in an li /li. And then after we've done the whole loop, we're going to set HTML to include a closing UL. And then we'll update the result div box. HTML. So let's go ahead and reload. And there are our search results. Um, just to make this a complete example, I'm going to go ahead and put an input box here. So there's my input box input. And I'm going to add an event listener to that box. So document, actually, let's go ahead and const, should have consted that too. Since it's not changing, I can use const there. Input box is document get element by ID input box, and then input box add event listener key up is going to give me an event that I can use if event.code is enter or event.code is numpad enter, I think. Then I'm going to get my search value. Clear the input box. And that's going to be the thing that kicks this off. Like so. Pass in, yep, key from there. Okay, so that should be a complete example. So let's try KDE. And let's try music. And then let's do Amarok, which I guess is a person's, no, it's I guess a music player for Linux. I'm not really a Linux head. I used to use Linux, but anyways, this seems to be a complete example. Obviously, I could make it look a little nicer, but round trip. So now let's look at what we ended up with. So this is the straight callback metaphor, and this is a callback, but it's a callback in response to an event. So it's actually an event handler, and the operating system is basically going to be calling this thing, and I have no control over that. So I'm basically forced to have this level of callback here because that's just how event listeners and event handlers work. And same thing with this. This is also an event handler with an event listener. But then here, this fetch posts, that involves a callback. So this is an asynchronous process, basically. And so I need to wait for the results to arrive. And so I pass a callback to handle the results when they're available. So that's one layer. And then over here, I get another layer of callback here when I connect to the database. And then another layer of callback here when I actually get the results from the query. So basically I get 3 layers of callback with fairly significant amounts of code at each point, and following the logic is like not so easy. And this is actually a fairly small example because I'm really only handling one kind of request. So I could have multiple additional layers in here too, depending on what's going on. Maybe I also want to write to a file and I only want to do the database query if the file write is successful. And so there's callbacks for the file handling and callbacks for the database, and it's complicated. So this is A little taste of callback hell, and it's what we're going to be addressing and starting in the next video when we talk about promises.